Alright, today we're going to learn about sound design using Vital, because this synth is free and you can just go download it and use it no matter which DAW you are using. But then even if you wanted to use a different synth, the principles that we'll be learning here are applicable to all synths. So the start of your synth sound comes from the oscillator. This is the little thing that makes the noise. So if we click here, we can change these different types of waves that will make different sounds. So if we go to basic shapes, we now have a sine wave, which is the most pure and basic kind of sound and often has the most sub frequency. So if you're trying to create some really deep bass, this would be a good place to start. Then because Vital is a wavetable synthesizer, just like Serum and Massive, this isn't just one static wave, but you can actually change through to different types. On more like analog synthesizers, you would just be able to pick one or another, but because it's a wavetable, you can kind of morph between the different wave shapes. This isn't that important right now, but just that you can go use this to get different types of sounds. So as we said, here's our sine wave. Here is going towards a triangle. And see, now it has much more content in the upper harmonics, more full rich sound. And a sawtooth, even more harmonic content. And then there's a square wave. There's all sorts of other fancy wavetables, different shapes and all sorts, but basically it comes down to these fellows right here. So using this button, we can now, if we want, have two oscillators. So now it's playing these two different shapes at once. Let's go to our basic shapes here and make it the same. Okay, so now it's playing two of exactly the same shape. So here we can change we can transpose what note this voice is playing. So if, for instance, we take this up to +7, so I'm playing a C, and it's playing the C with oscillator 1, then with oscillator 2 it's playing 7 steps up. And by combining these two different notes at once, you can create really rich, fat sounds. See, with it off. So the next important parameter that we come to is down here, is the voices. So this is how many different notes, how many different keys you can press at once and it'll play. So at the moment, we could play chords, which sounds kind of crazy with having two oscillators on. But if we wanted to just make a bass, for instance, we would change this voices to 1, so it's now mono. We can only play one note at a time. So even when I'm holding down all three, it's only playing one of them, which is useful because when you're in the bass registers, having overlapping notes can sound intense and not so good. We won't mess around with these parameters right now, but the next one we'll get to is glide. So this, if we put this up, it basically will like transition between the frequencies from the first note you play to the second note. And if you have just a little bit of it, it can sound pretty cool. We'll turn that off for now. All right, so the next key parameter of any synth is the envelope. So this right here, envelope 1, is what you would call the amp envelope. This is affecting the overall volume of the synth. So usually we have what they call ADSR, which is the attack, decay, sustain, and release. But Vital has a couple more parameters too, which we'll go over quick. Delay just puts the delay from the time you hit the button until, so I'm hitting the button now, and now it's playing, so it makes a little delay. But that's kind of not super duper useful. But then, so here is the attack. So the attack changes how long it will take to reach full volume. We'll skip over these two for a second and get to sustain. So the sustain is the level of the full volume that it gets up to. So at the moment, it's going up. And now if I keep holding my key down, it's just going to stay at the sustain volume. If we take this down, the volume will go up to here, and then we'll go down to the sustain. And then stay at this volume, the sustain volume. See? Now the decay affects how long it's going to take to get from the full attack to the sustain. So if we go short, goes up, and let's make our attack short so we can show us better. Okay, see? So then if we make it longer, it's going to take that long to get from the maximum volume down to the sustain volume. Now the hold changes how long it stays at the peak of the attack before it starts to decay. It's really nice and Vital how it shows you this little guy going along. It's very, very visual, so it's easy to understand what these do. Now the release is how long the sound will kind of ring out after you release the key. So if I put it up, so yeah, basically, I really recommend that you just get yourself a basic kind of sound and just play around with these, because really the envelope of the amp envelope is just like, this is the main bread and butter of designing a lot of sounds. All right, so the next key thing in synthesis is the filter. Now the filter will filter out the frequencies that you don't want. So if we go down here and click here, now we've enabled filter 1. At the moment, oscillator 1 is routed to filter 1, but our oscillator 2 is routed to filter 2. So we're going to click this, make it so they're both going to filter 1. Let's put up our sustain. So this here changes the cutoff of the filter. So when it's fully open like this, basically the whole frequency of our oscillators is coming through. If we close it down, we're only getting the bass frequencies, because this is a low pass filter. It's letting the low frequencies pass and cutting the high frequencies. Up here on the top, we can change from this low pass on the left to a high pass on the right, or a combination of the two. So now it's a high pass filter and only letting the high frequencies through and cutting out the bass frequencies. Let's put it back to a low pass. Using a low pass filter is super common and the main way that most synths are designed. On some synths, the filter is already routed to an envelope, just like the amp is, so that you can change how fast the filter affects the sound. In Vital, it is not already routed to an envelope, but we can easily do that ourselves. So if we come over here onto envelope 2, we click this little fella, or we drag this little fella, we can then drop it here on the filter, and now it's going to affect, this envelope 2 is going to affect the cutoff of our filter. So if we increase the attack, for instance, so our attack is changing what speed it takes for it to open. And the amount that it opens is changed by how much of this little modulation pizza we have set to it, which this line here below it shows how much. So if it's all the way, then it's going to go all the way open. You see? So let's just do it a little bit. There we go. So then if we take down the sustain, it will then go up to our full height with the attack and then come down to where we've set the sustain. And then how long it takes to reset back is dependent on the release. So now it's slow, see? Slowly moving back, but we probably want that quicker. And then again, we could use the decay to make how long it's going to go down to the sustain level. Okay, so another way that we could modulate our filter is by using an LFO. So let's remove this envelope. We can just click on that, double click on it. Now it's not modulating this anymore. And instead we're going to come over to LFO1 and pull this onto here. So now this is kind of like the same as the envelope, instead it cycles round and round and round. We can change the shape of our envelope here. Let's change it to a sine wave. And then the frequency is the rate that our LFO cycles around. So let's put it way up. And that's how you make wobble bass and such. And again, the amount of this pi, how far we've and which direction we make it go, is going to affect how far the filter opens. So this little green line, how long, where that ends is where the filter will open to, and we can also go the opposite direction and make it go down. Alright, so there we have it. Those are the basic parameters of most synths. Everything else is kind of a bonus, a plus after that. If you get your head around all the things that we've talked about here, you're going to be able to make most any sound you want. And also, what's really good to be able to do is go through other people's presets, but be able to tweak it and change it, dial in the attack and release and whatnot to get it exactly how you want. All right, let's put all these theories into practice and make a little simple bell sound. So if we go here, click the little hamburger menu, we can initialize the preset, which is going to put everything back to a blank slate so we can make our sound. All right, we're going to go here, press there, we're going to get ourselves basic shapes, and we're going to make that, oh, wrong arrow. This scrolls through the different shapes, but we want to go and get this, and we're gonna make this a square wave. We're gonna make our second oscillator. There we go. A sine wave, but maybe slightly morphed between. So this is like a sine wave turning into a square wave. And we're going to put this, we're going to transpose this up 5 semitones. And we're going to go over to envelope 1, because envelope 1 is our amp envelope, is affecting our overall volume. We're going to take the sustain all the way down. So now when I hit it, we just get this very little sharp bell plucky sound. We're going to make the release go up, so it rings out. We could make the decay even shorter. See, now you can make a very, very plucky sound. So there's a lot you can do just with this one parameter. Now we're going to come over to here, which is the unison, which is basically an effect, and this is going to create a bigger, larger sound, because it basically creates more voices that are slightly out of tune with each other, which will make this large sound. So let's put this up to 4 voices. Getting somewhere. Let's make the decay a little longer. Okay, let's route the oscillator 2 to filter 1 as well. So both our oscillators are going to filter 1. Turn on filter 1. Going to open the cutoff a little bit. So it's just cutting out some of the really high frequencies. Okay, I'm quite liking this sound. But to make it to the next level, let's put some effects on it. So if we go up here and click on the effects tab, we now have access to all these cool effects. So let's turn on the delay. Let's get a little echo. Let's change it to ping pong. Change the cutoff, so we're cutting out some of the lower frequencies. And we're going to go turn the reverb on too. Turn up the mix a little bit, so there's more reverb. And there we go, got a cool little sound. Maybe if we turn down the feedback and the mix on the delay a little bit. Let's go up an octave.